Hello televiewers, good afternoon and thanks for joining us on today's edition of Views on the Continent on your Pan-African television. The rendezvous that is usually at 3 o'clock local time is for your interactive and informative program Views on the Continent, where we bring to you what's making news around the continent and what's preoccupying the world at large and the African continent in particular. Today we are looking at the CEMAC summit that is underway in the political capital of Cameroon, that is Yaoundé, where the six leaders of the member states of the CEMAC are holding an extraordinary summit meeting where they are looking at the economic challenges that are hampering the zone, and also they are looking at the humanitarian and security challenges. But now, looking at all of these summits that keep holding, taking note that the host is President Paul Biya, who is actually hosting this 18th extraordinary summit. It is actually something that the bloc or the members of the bloc want to see how they can sort out these issues that are challenging the continent. Talking of economic challenges, humanitarian and security challenges, we are going to unveil that to you, looking at the stakes of this CEMAC summit that is running from today to tomorrow in the political capital, Yaoundé. In our studio this afternoon, we have Mr. Robert Kedia, that is our guest to give us. He's going to give us his know-how and insight regarding the topics that are going to be tabled to you this afternoon. Mr. Robert Kedia, you're a political analyst. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Rita Moto, and thank you for having me here. I'm glad to be here. Greetings to all the viewers of Afrique Media, especially those in the continent, especially those around Wuse to Maitama, those in Ikorodu in Nigeria, and those out of the continent. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Robert Kedia, for accepting to be my guest this afternoon. So, talking of the CEMAC summit, the stakes and challenges of this summit, we are going to get a listen of this report that was compiled and arranged by Regina Sondo. Then we'll be back in the studio. Let's take a listen.
Leaders of member countries of the Economic and Monetary Community of Central African States, CEMAC, are meeting for their extraordinary summit at the Unity Palace in Yaoundé. The conclave, which is hosted by the CEMAC sub-regional President Paul Biya, holds at a moment when the number of the member countries reportedly face challenges in the economic, humanitarian, and security domains, amongst other issues. The question of the future of the CFA franc could possibly be addressed during the extraordinary summit of Yaoundé. Observers have been hoping for a while now that the head of states look for an alternative currency, just as West Africa is doing. Another issue which is going to be brought up is the financing of CEMAC. The low recovery of community resources through the Community Integration Tax (CIT) mechanism has been jeopardizing the expected performance finance institutions in CEMAC countries. Security will also be on the menu of discussions. The heads of state and government of the sub-region will also talk about free movement of people in the CEMAC space and the efforts made over the years to revive growth and diversification of economies. Prior to this event, members of government from across the sub-region met on Tuesday, November 19 in Yaoundé for their own extraordinary meeting. According to reports, they used the opportunity to review actions taken so far to revitalize the economies of CEMAC countries, discuss on how to intensify the free movements of persons and goods among member states, and look into ways to reinforce the value of the franc CFA.
Looking at how to reinforce the values of the franc CFA, looking at the financing of the CEMAC zone and other humanitarian and security challenges, the free movement of people within the African countries are the stakes of the CEMAC 18th Extraordinary CEMAC Summit that is underway in Yaoundé, Cameroon. So, talking about this summit, we are having panelists this afternoon with whom we are going to detail these topics. So, Mr. Robert Kadia, now already the summit is on the way, kicked open this morning in the political capital, Yaoundé. 3 years now after the last summit in Chad, how do you see the application of the resolutions and their benefits to the regional bloc?
The main problem they have always had is the problem of movement within the bloc. Like, for instance, the country of Guinea Equatorial has always been a stumbling block to the free movement, because it was agreed that a member country has the right to go to another country for a space of 90 days for business or anything and come back without a visa. But this has been a problem because Guinea Equatorial has always oppose this. And a part of that, the CEMAC zone has other problems, like security problems. You realize that the Central African Republic has a crisis. We'll talk about the anti-Balaka forces that are in that country that have been causing a lot of disorder. You move on to Chad, you will meet the Boko Haram phenomenon that has attacked that country and is really causing havoc. Not to talk about the Republic of Cameroon that has the problem of Boko Haram in the northern part of the country, and the Anglophone crisis in that country, which I call the Southern Cameroon problem, and the problem in the eastern part of that country, the eastern region of that country is close to the Central African Republic, so it is also affected. So you realize that this is an economic monetary zone that has a lot of problem. So it is time for the presidents to come, sit together and find lasting solutions to problem affecting the monetary and the monetary zone. The most important issue they talked about last year was the fact that the franc CFA was supposed to be devaluated, but the president came together, brought in monetary policies, economic policies within their monetary zone that could really put a lot of effort to ensure that their currency should not be devaluated. And after some time, we see that actually they succeeded because the currency was not actually devaluated. So that's a positive effort that have been done by these CEMAC zone leaders. They are all dictators, if I may say so. Maybe they have some long years experience, like the president of Guinea Equatorial that has been there since 1979, the president of Cameroon that has been there since 1982, and Idriss Déby that has been there for over 2 decades, and Denis Sassou Nguesso that have been there for more than a decade. You go to Gabon, you realize that Mbongo has been there. He took over power from his father that also ruled from decades. So you realize that it is an economic and monetary zone of dictators that really know the know-how. But the main problem that this zone is really facing is the issue of the monetary. That is the franc CFA they are using. And you realize that all these countries in the CEMAC zone are all francophone countries that are ready to be shipped under the French to protect them in power. And so the franc CFA has been a really strong policy or instrument of neocolonialism, which France has been used to exploit this monetary zone. And the presidents that are dictators that are there are so excited that they are being in power, and they don't think about the liberation of their people from economic exploitation, because when you look at it, you realize that this country don't have an economy. You can't have an economy where you don't have a currency. So it's a clear fact that these countries do not have an economy.
So with regards now to this fight, the financing of the zone, which obviously leads to the debate around the franc CFA, like you just mentioned, the currency is presently presented by many experts as being a hindrance to the development of the region. Do you actually agree?
Oh, 100%. They are tools of neocolonialism, which France has used to really kidnap this zone If you can even go look at it detailedly, you realize that this is the most lagging economic zone in Africa. East Africa is doing better off than the CEMAC. The North is doing better off than the CEMAC. And not to talk about the West, that will be having their own currency, and our economy is going through stronger. So you realize that this is the most backward zone. They are using a currency that is being backed up by France. You realize that France control all their foreign reserve. When we talk about foreign reserve, we are talking about their external trade. All trade, everything that Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Gabon, and Congo, all their trade is being controlled by France, because these foreign trades, they pay their money through the Fcfa, which is a bank account of France, because the currency is being backed up by France in the World Bank. So you realize that all their transaction passes through France. Before you you look at that, meaning that they don't have a privacy. Apart of that, you look at also the fact that with regards to decision making about that currency, France has a veto power over decision making when this country do not have. It's a clear fact that they don't have a currency. It is a French currency. You even go at a level of looking at the currency, you realize that any transaction, you get the percentage that France has. France has more than 9% for the production of that currency, and many other. You realize that this country, these 6 African countries, they remain with about 60% of everything that the profit with regards to their international trade, because their foreign reserve is being controlled by this country. So as they are coming, is the hope of many Pan-African youths in these countries, hoping that their president will stand up for them to fight so that they can have economic independence, so that they can have their own currency and boost their own economy. So this conference that is taking place, which is a conference of dictators, which they have stayed in power for long, we just hope that it's time for them to realize that they have stayed in power for long, they have enjoyed power for long, but it's good for them to do something for their people.
Okay, you're right, Mr. Robert Kedia. Now, talking about these foreign reserves, we had Benin President Patrice Talon recently in an interview who revealed that the French-speaking countries in the ECOWAS are working towards bringing back the reserves, their reserves, from the French treasury. So do you think that this can actually inspire the CEMAC heads of states to want to claim management of their own reserves?
Talking about those in West Africa, they are talking about bringing their reserve. Yes, they are talking about bringing their reserve because they are opportune to be in West Africa, that's the ECOWAS, in which in 2020 they'll be having their own currency. So it's high time for them to be hijacking their foreign reserve to come back to them. But talking about the CEMAC zone really is characterized, as I earlier said, is characterized by dictators. We have people that have been in power for close to 40 years in this zone. Like, for instance, as I earlier said, the president of Guinea Equatorial has been there since 1979. President Paul Biya has been there for over 37 years. That of Chad has been there for over 2 decades. The Bongo family has been there for over 30 decades. And you realize that the only country that is coming in that has a president that have not made a decade is the president of the Central African Republic, which is going on which is having serious civil war or political instability in the country. So these countries themselves, their leaders are not patriotic. Their leaders are not Republican to their country because they don't think about their people, but they definitely think about themselves and how they can stay in power. Talking about, for instance, one of those countries that is having a domestic problem. Can you imagine that a country in the Central African, in the CEMAC, will have a crisis in his country? He calls for dialogue, and after the dialogue, he goes back to France to give report and say in his own word, rendre compte, and he come back to his own country. The president of France does not feel comfortable with the report he has given. He sent his minister came back to his country and have private meetings with some politicians in that country, goes back before decision has been taken. That is just pure
So
colonialism and not even neo-colonialism. So that is what this
head of
zone
state
is
giving
really
reports to
yes,
another head
to
of
another head of state, to his grandson. I would not even like to say to another head of state, but to his grandson. So it's really time for the African Union to come to the liberation of the CEMAC zone, because the youth are frustrated. If you look at what is happening, those that are crossing the ocean to go to Europe, if you look at those that are struggling to go to America, you realize that most of them come from the CEMAC zone because of the presence of the dictators that cannot manage their country. You look at the civil crisis, the political instability in their country is really causing the people to move out. So it's time for this president that have stayed in power. Please, our dear head of state, can you guys liberate us from this Fcfa? Can you guys grant us economic independence? Look at our own fellow African countries like Nigeria. They have their economic independence. They have their naira. You go to Ghana, you go to look at it, just a young country like Rwanda. Look at how far Rwanda is going because they have an economic independence. But us here in the CEMAC zone, we do not have an economic independence, not to talk about social or political. So it's time for the African Union to stand up strong to liberate this backward economic and monetary zone of CEMAC that are suffering due to the tools of neo-colonialism that has been implanted in this zone, causing them to suffer and go through misery, pain, and poverty.
All right, Mr. Robert Kedia, I have a worry. I really want to know, is the real problem the use of the CFA franc, or is it the management of the currency that is actually the problem in the CEMAC region, given that all the reserves, the reserve funds of the BEAC, that's the Bank of Central African States, are managed by France? Is the real problem now the use of the CFA franc, or is the real problem the management of the currency?
It is naturally clear that Africa goes through a problem of poor management. But the problem is not the poor management, but the problem is the exploitative nature of this currency. You saw the Prime Minister of Italy saying that Africans are diving into Europe because of the neo-colonialism and the France monetary policy, their Fcfa, that is very, very exploitative. I would not say it's the poor management. Look at the CEMAC zone. What level of corruption is there? Go to Nigeria. For instance, you see a minister embezzling money that is almost the budget of Cameroon, like their former minister of petroleum. So you realize that the problem of corruption, embezzlement, is a problem everywhere, which you see Muhammadu Buhari is struggling to fight. Embezzlement, corruption is a problem in Africa. So I will not definitely affiliate it as a problem of the CEMAC zone. So the main problem of the CEMAC zone is the economic exploitation of France through their monetary tool of neo-colonialism, which they use to exploit this economic zone. When you don't have a currency, you don't have an economic independence. And when you don't have an economic independence, it is for sure, naturally and clear, that you will suffer from underdevelopment, you will suffer from poverty. That is why when we even analyze the economy of African countries, you realize that even Sierra Leone and Liberia that are coming back from the Ebola that destroyed their economy, they are far more better than countries in the CEMAC zone because they have that economic independence. They regulate their own monetary policy. They regulate their economic policies. But the CEMAC zone, they don't. They are using the Fcfa, and France is having a veto power with regards to decision-making on the Fcfa. And the countries do not have any veto power. So it's just be clear that they are stooge. Yeah. And that is a problem of neo-colonialism. And that is the canker worm that has been chopping the whole of French African country, causing them to be backward. Which African country that is that was colonized by France can compare with Rwanda? Okay, let's say that Rwanda is braving the odds. They are rapidly developing. Yeah. Which of them can compare with Ghana? Which of them can compare with Morocco? Which of them can compare with South Africa? They can't compare. They do not have economic independence. Even at the level of political independence, France determine who will be their next president. And that is why when the Prime Minister of Italy came out to say,
these refugees are coming because of the problem in their continent, especially the French country, where they are suffering from the Fcfa that is very, very exploitative. What did their colonial masters do? They had to send and call the president of Ivory Coast, who went to France and said that the Fcfa is an African currency. And it's just so frustrating for me, being a young political scientist in Africa, going up and I look at our African president being manipulated as if they are kids, as if their level of education is very low. How can you say the Fcfa is your currency when you do not even have a veto power over that currency, but someone else's does? The Fcfa is being backed up in the World Bank by the Reserve of France, and you say it's our currency? It is not our currency. The French African countries do not have an economy, and that is why they can't compare with any other country. So I just hope that the meeting in Yaoundé will be an opportunity for them to say, okay, we are dictators. We have stayed in power for decades. Very soon we will be going. Let us at least do one thing for the people of our economic and monetary zone by granting them economy independence. If they can take this decision, then I believe that all Africans in this zone will stand up and support their president. But if they can't do this for the people, then they are just a total failure.
You're right, Mr. Robert Kedia. Thank you very much for this segment of intervention. Televiewers, you're watching Views on the Continent this afternoon, and we are looking at the current or the ongoing CEMAC summit in Cameroon's capital city, Yaoundé, where the member states are trying to look at the ways out of in order to find issues for funding and investment in the region, and also look at the humanitarian and security challenges that the zone is having. So with this summit that is ongoing, we leave our lines open for you to also tell us your views regarding the state of the CEMAC zone and how it can actually, or how soon it can tackle these various challenges that the zone is undergoing or the member states are facing. We leave the lines open for you to give us your opinion or your views on Views on the Continent. I come back to you, Mr. Robert Kedia. Earlier, you mentioned that so most of these CEMAC leaders are leaders that have overstayed in power, and you think that it is the fact that they've overstayed in power that makes the state, maybe the zone, not to develop, not to advance at the level of the economy. But now I want to state to you that we have Equatorial Guinea, which has been noted actually for instability and insecurity, but the president Teodoro Obiangema has made it through these tough moments, and he has been able to brave all these challenges, and the world is actually seeing these works through the national development that he's carrying out in his country. So don't you think that he could be well placed to advise these African counterparts on how to tackle insecurity at the benefit of their nations and the continent at large?
You see, there's a difference between Guinea Equatorial from the other 5 countries in CEMAC zone. It comes back far from the issue of the attempted coup d'etat that failed, which Robert Mugabe assisted, and the FBI in America, in which information leaked about the coup d'etat. And since then, France has been, Guinea Equatorial has been collaborating and working with the good devil, because you see, the state is the main player in the international scene, and you realize that all other countries, especially the West, they come to exploit, they come for self-interest. But among all of them, we have the US of A, which is the good devil, that when he comes to exploit, he exploits with sympathy, and thanks to this, Guinea Equatorial has been developing. But countries like the Central African Republic, countries like Cameroon, countries like Chad are working with the evil devil, the bad devil of France. So that is just but sure that Guinea Equatorial should develop, because they are working with the US of A, which has values of democracy and human rights. Now, talking about Guinea, the president of Guinea, Teodoro Obiangema, yes, I believe that he has a lot to give us advice to this his other 5 colleagues of the CEMAC zone. That is why you see he has always retaliated
to accept the free movement into his country because of decisions making, internal policies. If the CEMAC zone is struggling to have a strong and powerful economic strength, and Cameroon decides to go and sign a private treaty with the European Union of free importation and exportation, it then now hampered the economic policies within the CEMAC zone. So those are some of the domestic problems that is occurring. Look like, for instance, West Africa, there. Nigeria has seen that the home industry is crumbling. So Nigeria decided to close their border to ensure that their home industry can boost for some time, sell their resources for some time before they go into it. That is what Guinea Equatorial is struggling to do, because their fellow counterpart, they don't really pay attention to home industry. Because when a country starts to sign free trade with a single country like Cameroon, will sign a free trade with a big continent like Europe. So it's just but sure that that contract or that treaty will not be definitely balanced. So it's time for Teodoro Biangema, his long time in power since 1979, to give advice to his colleague in the other zones to be able to follow his footsteps, to work with the USA, which is the better devil, and to ensure that their economy can develop rather than stay with the bad devil of France country.
All right, thank you, Mr. Robert Kedia. Of course, that's your opinion, and it's not every African country that would prefer maybe to work with the West, or to work with the United States, or to work with France, because this is what the African leaders are trying to fight against, to fight on for their autonomy, to fight against the Western dominance and interference. So we now go to the call center and begin taking the callers who have been waiting for a long while. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, you're live on the program.
The CEMAC summit is in Cameroon now. It is there currently going on. We have seen, we heard the speech of the President of the Republic that is calling on the leaders to be committed so that together they can forge ahead to improve the economy of the sub-region. But you don't understand that one of the striking issues that should be at table that they would have tackled to be in line with the East African bloc is the devaluation of the CFA franc. I mean the changing of the currency, which we've heard the East African bloc has tried to change the currency. They are making an attempt to change the currency, but the CEMAC leaders are so dragging their feet not to change the currency. But I think that if they can come out with a conclusive agreement to change the currency, it will be good, because an HO currency in this sub-region. Of course, security is one of the serious issues that they will have tackled, because we've seen that extremism and insurgency is common in the Central African sub-region. And of course, we have a number of dictators. A high level of dictators in Africa is coming from the Central African sub-region. You remember that Anglophone Bazogo is one of the oldest presidents since 1979 when he came to power, and one of the dean of the CEMAC of the Central African sub-region. So dictatorship in this region is one of the issues that people are not happy about them. Commitment to their own laws, like the CEMAC passport, like free movement into other CEMAC countries, is not being allowed by some of these countries. But Paul Biya, as a wise man of Central Africa, always implements such decisions. And of course, now we are facing what we call the currency situation that we are facing today. We've had the shortage of currency in the economy, like the coin, the 100 francs coin, the 500 franc coin, the 50 franc coins are short in circulation in the in the sub-region. And so that one of the issues that they will have come also that so as a board of the Bank of Central African State, CEMAC, can sit together and look into ways of solving this situation, because people are really suffering into the markets of the CEMAC countries, not only in Cameroon but other CEMAC nation. I think that coming together is a good move. And we all know Paul Biya is a wise man. He always strike the move, always say what is right. And even though he will say if some of the leader will not follow it, but he always maintain the laws of CEMAC. Yes, talking about Guinea, well, we know the frequent coup d'etat in that country, Guinea-Bissau, and the president is still going in for another term of office, which is offensive to the people. I think that the people should accept the result of the election. They should go in and vote who they choose democratically, and then try to see whether the president will still, whether there will be a kind of electioneering. If there will be electioneering, then they have the right now to talk to the street and condemn, and then make sure they bring down whosoever is responsible for such an electioneering. Thank you.
On the program, we have callers still waiting, so we get the next caller online. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm very happy to be on the line, and we see our Central Africa parents, old fathers, analog dictators are holding a meeting. There's not anything good will come from them, because if you look from the day they took over powers today, nothing has been done by them. I want our brothers to name their achievement. You realize that there's no achievement in all their resolutions. So it's just a coffee conference to renew their confidence among one another, friendship, enjoying themselves. They have come for holiday, and some few days will go back, tell the African continent we have done a good job. Look from the day Mr. Biya took over office, and from the day the man in charge, you will see that nothing has changed. Nothing has changed, apart from if the one man comes and say, okay, we want to implement this to exploit our resources. They will exploit the resources, and from there now they will go their way. That is the only achievement they can have. If you look at the Fcfa, if you are not in a society, those are occultic society, you can never be a member of Fcfa. And if you look, all the heads of states are in the occultic society. That's why it's difficult for them to change their mind. Because if you change your mind, the occultic society will punish you. So how can France be keeping euro, using euro, working with euro? Then we Africans, slaves for life, using Fcfa. How can it be like that, master? So they are just there to exploit us and keep us exploited. And the French people are just there. You see, our French people are just there. They are so comfortable with that, with this system until just look the way they even position themselves. Look, it's only old people that are in Africa, running Africa, destroying Africa. The new generation has nothing to offer. The only thing the new generation can offer is violence. And violence, they will use violence to fight them. You can never see a young man come up in Africa with good ideas that will even live long there. Because the dictators will fight him out. There's nothing Mr. Biya and his people can give you there. There is nothing. Mr. Biya is not a wise man. Mr. Biya is a foolish man. Because foolish people give only foolish ideas. Sorry to use that word, but I'm talking to the former caller. There will never be any white coming from Mr. Biya. If you look at the Nigerian president, he's under pressure. He's under pressure, he's making reforms. Under pressure, making reforms because he has realized that only African can help an African man. That's why he has blocked his borders so that they can consume African products. Because the white man just come and collect and go and use it. He does not come back and refund a good part of it back to us. Okay, let's look like chocolate. If African leaders decide that no chocolate should go to Europe, those Europeans will take their guns, come and shoot us here because they need the cocoa. They will never allow Africa to exploit its cocoa. They will prefer to allow Africa to exploit petrol than to exploit cocoa because they know what the cocoa can do to a white man. Those are the things. The solution is that a conference that they should just go and say, Fcfa from today, stop. We'll clap for them. We said number one achievement. Thank you very much. My brother, you have said it all. There's nothing that will come out from that conference. There is no wise person there. No, all of them are dictators. Dictators, there's no good thing that comes out from a dictator. What comes from a dictator is just coffee, drinking, enjoyment, finish, they go back home. Thank you.
Caller, quickly, please. Hello, good afternoon, and thanks for joining us on the program. Hello.
Good afternoon, Rita. Good afternoon to all lovers and viewers of Afrique Media. My name is Ndideri Ngong. I'm calling from Abidjan in Ivory Coast. I would like to say that the meeting of the presidents in Cameroon, in Yaoundé, is a very good gesture, and it is something that we should really applaud, and we should look forward to seeing such meetings again and again. But let me contribute by saying that we need to see our heads of states thinking and coming out with ways in which all the countries within this sub-region, within these economic regions, can be more open to each other in terms of communication and transport. When you look at the way Cameroonians are treated in the circle of this CEMAC, especially regarding Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea relationship, where difficulties in entering such a country becomes a very tough question for you to answer. And even in the recent past, it was Gabon. Cameroonians were not so much welcomed into Gabon because suddenly they feel that the population is less and their resources are high. So Cameroonians coming in to grab their opportunities was such a disadvantage to my own view, because if we open up our roads, if we open up communication, there's going to be that interflow of the human resources, like the people who go to create more jobs, who go to facilitate the development of these countries. We are looking at a region that is financially back, but agriculturally very rich. But then you go to Equatorial Guinea, very few people are agriculturalists. So if they can open their borders and welcome Cameroonians, it will be very good. Same in Gabon and same in the Central African Republic and in Chad. There should be a development of a powerful railway that can link Yaoundé to Mundu in Chad, and then finally to N'Djamena. Why not to the Central African Republic's capital and even to Brazzaville? There should be a kind of a movement so that the region, we are thinking about a region that is going to be growing with time. So it is not only people should be moving by air from Yaoundé to Brazzaville, from Yaoundé to Gabon's capital, not like that. We should be moving by train, we should be moving, there should be various ways in which mobility should be facilitated so that as people move, development should also come up. How many Cameroonians are visiting Gabon? How many Gabonese are visiting Cameroon? And so on and so forth. This is what our heads of state should be looking at, and looking at ways of coming up with development plans that can build these projects so that the people of this region can freely move to one another's country and relate and bring forth things. The system of education in this area should also relate to each other, so that when one moves from Cameroon to Chad, he should not be a stranger, and so on and so forth. I think this is what our leaders should be thinking and then coming up with. Good afternoon. My name is Dideric again from Abidjan.
Participating on the program this afternoon. We still stay online. The line is congested. We need to take some of your calls. Hello, good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. Just go on, please. You're live on the program.
Good afternoon to Ritam. Good afternoon to the thousands of televiewers of Afrique Media. My name is Far Elvis Tayong, calling from Douala in Cameroon. Well, concerning the upcoming presidential elections slated for November 24th on Sunday in Guinea-Bissau, one thing we have to understand is that most presidential elections, as we find, with the incumbent Jose Mario Vaz is for the fact that most of the incumbents are always likely to take the lead of the day. Well, when we look at it, since Jose Mario took over power in 2014, it becomes obvious from every indication that he has had an unstable government with the numerous changes put in place at the level of the prime ministry and also dissolving the cabinet of recent. Well, all of this is to let you know that with the elections on the African continent, what we get to understand is that most of the African leaders have not been able to live up to expectations as of now, for the simple reason that most of them are being teleguided by colonial powers or Western powers who have gone a long way to dictate the politics that exist within our various milieus in Africa. Well, you will come to think about it that why is it that elections that take place in America, you will not have violence coming, you will not have pre and post-election violence. Elections across Europe, you will not have that. Why is it only the case of Africa? It means that there is an invisible hand, which also implies that the manner through which most of these presidents come to power also determines the manner through which they tend to govern the people that has been placed under them. For example, we understand that Jose Mario is just in his first term of office, which is not promising.
Thank you, Mr. Alpha Elvis, for your participation on the program this afternoon. We take the other caller online. Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Is the caller online, please?
This is Ngwe calling from Douala, Cameroon. Rita, one of the greatest achievements that CEMAC can ever achieve is when they decide to kick France CFA out of that particular zone. You know, since the president of Cameroon, Mr. Paul Biya, became the head of the CEMAC, that is last year, all I knew is that this man is a vibrant man. He is a wise man, and I expected him to be the president ever since. And I know that is the only person who can fight to kick out this CEMAC in this zone. But since then, we have not heard anything concerning that. But I know that the only greatest achievement, if CEMAC want to grow economically and everything wise, if the only thing they can do here is that they should kick out this particular France CFA out of this particular zone, which is because the economy of this particular zone is not growing or is not moving, is not booming because of this particular currency, which is killing the zone. It is not helping the zone in any way, but it is instead killing the zone. And that is the reason why you see even the check-up of this particular currency, there is nothing which is being done. And that is the reason why the Chinese can bring up their companies and do anything that they want. That is the reason why you can bet with me that the coin is no longer in circulation because of the Chinese, because of those games that they're doing. When they collect it, they will go and be producing they will go and be producing their chains. So the only thing they can do is to kick out this franc zone. That will be the greatest achievement that CEMAC can ever do or can ever achieve. When you look at Guinea-Bissau, we know President Vaz has lost his popularity in this particular country, and if I were him, automatically I couldn't have stand for this particular elections that is coming that is coming on the 24th. Now we know that since he became the president of this particular country in 2014, he has done a lot of things I have never seen in a country where in a realm of office of a president who have about 7 prime ministers. It doesn't work. That shows that nothing is working in his reign as the president of this particular country. Just look at it critically. When he became the president, 2015, he sacked the most prominent prime minister that everybody trusted. And that is the reason why, since then, you are going to realize that he has lost his popularity in this particular country. And for the chances for him to win is very, very limited. They are very, very limited. Let us not forget that he has lost popularity, and even in his party. So he is now standing as an independent candidate out from his own party. That shows that his chances to win, they are very, very limited. They are very, very limited. And that is the reason why, since the presidential elections is being scheduled on the 24th, you are going to realize the oppositions, they have tabled a request. They have even tabled a request for the electoral system to be checked, so that there should not be other irregularities like what we always experience in Cameroon, that will be experiencing ghost voters, people who are not alive, they are voting. Those are the things. So the chances for him to win these elections, they are very, very limited. In the first place, he has lost his party that he was the head. And
Marcel, for your view, very brilliant intervention.